Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you could join me. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. I have a great guest coming on. I have Anthony Constantino, CEO of Sticker Mule, here to talk about everything politics. Anthony, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you could join me. You know, you're a fellow New Yorker. There's a lot going on in New York, and everyone seems to be focusing now on the New York City mayoral race, that you have a communist that pretty much was nominated as the Democrat nominee. Being a New Yorker, what do you think about Mamdani and what he represents?
Well, it's unbelievable. They call him a communist, but he's really, because they throw the label at us, he's really a Nazi too, if you think about it. I was talking to my campaign manager who is Jewish, and, he agreed with the label. He looked this guy, he said he supports globalize the Intifada. He looked free Palestine, and, that goes along with death to Israel and all those other words that really are the types of things Nazis say. So I called him the New York Nazi, actually, just the other day on Facebook. It went viral. I think it's the hottest post in New York Facebook right now. It got over 1,000 shares in about 8 hours. And so I think it's a good label for him. They call him a communist, but I'm calling him a Nazi too for his hatred towards the Jewish community.
Are you surprised? I mean, given where the Democrat Party is, are you surprised how far they've gone off the deep end where they'll nominate someone that essentially does call for the elimination of Israel, a genocide to pretty much occur? Are you surprised that that's going on right now?
Well, I think in this case, and I shouldn't give the Democrats credit, I think they even regret this guy getting the nomination. Unfortunately, the other candidate was terrible. The other candidate, Cuomo, was terrible, and they really had no one, they made it easy for this communist Nazi to get in there, because you look, Cuomo had so many issues with what he did during the pandemic. He was the worst governor in New York State, the United States of America, the way he handled New York State. We had so much death, and people left by the millions because of his behavior during during the pandemic. He destroyed New York City. I mean, he really kind of single-handedly destroyed New York City. So I think they were in a tough situation where as soon as he ran, it made it easy for this communist Nazi to go and beat him. I think probably, any other strong candidate would have beat him. By the way, the guy's
I'm not a fan of Emperor Cuomo, that's for sure. And I think you're right about that. It created the opening because there was a void in the Democrat Party. They pretty much banished Eric Adams from it, and therefore it allowed Mamdani to actually win. But you're a CEO, so you understand the business world. If Mamdani, God help us, if he's elected as New York City mayor, how does that impact the business community, not just in New York City, but throughout the United States?
Well, the business community in New York City has already been decimated. I said, I'm a big fan of New York delis. I love Sarge's. Sarge's is one of my favorite places to eat. Everybody, they all tease me. I go to New York City and there's so many places, and my go-to is Sarge's. That's my favorite place to eat. So I love New York City. I love the Jewish delis. And I'm like, this guy, he's going to decimate. I mean, looks like if he gets in, he's going to decimate all the great New York Jewish delis and turn them into government-owned grocery stores possibly, because he's advocating for that. So we got a lot to worry about. If New York City goes badly, I'm from upstate. Sometimes upstaters say, well, that, it's two different worlds. But if New York City goes badly, it's bad for all of New York State. The only good thing about this guy potentially winning is I think it's possibly good for the country, because we're going to have yet another symbol of how good the Democrats are of destroying great things. They destroyed two of the greatest cities in the world. They destroyed San Francisco. New York City was arguably the greatest city in the world. It's obviously not the greatest city anymore. So they already destroyed it. They took the greatest city in the world and they made it much lower on the list, and it's going to get even lower on the list with this guy in charge. So the only upside for the country is more and more people are going to wake up and see, and probably New Yorkers are going to wake up and see just how bad the Democrat Party has become.
But how many more examples do we need? I mean, you just brought up San Francisco and Los Angeles. I mean, why aren't the American people in these cities getting it?
Well, it seems like we had enough examples, because we had a great victory with President Trump. We had a landslide victory with President Trump. What's going on in the cities? I don't know. Sometimes, people, when things go good, they think, and this happens in business as well. Like they take things for granted, and we have all these great cities in the United States of America, and they were built on people making smart decisions, and then people get lackadaisical and they just assume things are always going to be great. I actually grew up in a business that was failing. I grew up in a family business that was failing, and when I got out of college, it was basically in bankruptcy. I had to take control of the business and save it from bankruptcy. And the line I kept hearing from the management team that worked there at the time was, "We've been a great company for 50 years, for forever long." It was around for a long time because my dad had me very late in life. So they said, "We've been a great company for 50 years." I was like, "Well, that doesn't really matter because we're going to be dead very soon. We're on the verge." So people get lackadaisical. I went through with my own family's company. The management team didn't want to accept that the company was failing because they had so many good years. And I think we probably had the same phenomenon in cities, that people made great decisions that made a great business come to life, or they built a great city on the backs of people making good decisions and working hard, and then people just assume it's going to be good forever and they can do whatever they want to do, but that's not the way it goes.
No, it's certainly not. And, I don't know if Mandani is aware, but given that he's a graduate from universities, he probably got corrupted there, indoctrinated. Government grocery stores never work. In fact, when the government gets involved in business and they increase the rules, the regulations, the red tape, how difficult does it make it for someone like yourself to hire new employees, to invest in the business, expand business operations? How difficult?
Well, I think before we get into that, the most important thing to know about Mamdani is that he's an actor. A lot of people don't know that about him, or they haven't paid attention to that. He's an actor, and he said he got into acting through nepotism because his mom got him an acting job. But he learned how to be an actor, and being an actor means he's a good liar. So he's really a professional liar. He got into the world of acting. He knows how to read lines basically very effectively and put emotion into it. So when you see him crying about this or that, or pretending he loves, the LGBTQIA community, which is at times has issues with me. I like the LGB part, but then you start adding all these other things and it gets very confusing. But I said, this guy's a great liar because I saw him. He said, "Oh, I love the LGBTQIA plus 7-3, whatever they do at the end now." And I said, this guy's a total liar. He's a devout Muslim. And, I have a lot of Muslim friends. And I can tell you right now, the Muslim community, if you read the Quran, they don't really like that community. They don't like they definitely don't like the TQ plus 3790 that they had at the end. They definitely don't like that. So when he's saying he likes that, he's a liar. So the most important thing to know about him, he's an actor. He knows how to read lines. He knows how to put emotion into his words, but it's all acting. It's all lying. So I got off on a different topic. As far as regulations go, it obviously doesn't help. New York State's going in a bad direction because of regulations. Ironically, I'm dealing with regulations right now in my own hometown of Amsterdam, New York. So this is a local story, but it's just another example of Democrats being crazy. Believe it or not, a week ago, the local Democrats got mad at a food pantry and viciously shut down a food pantry. I suspect because they were mad at how many people were going to get free food. It was embarrassing the city. But I talked to the guy running the pantry. He was just a guy that wanted to do good. He actually was a barber, and he and his brother decided to start giving free food to the citizens of my town because we have issues there. And demand went through the roof, and the mayor got embarrassed by the situation. He viciously shut down the food pantry on the basis of regulations. They're not following the regulations, but he gave them no explanation what the regulations are, and he gave them zero notice, just instant shutdown out of the blue. And not only did he shut them down, but he viciously called all of his, he called his entire supply chain. He called all the people supplying him with the free food. By the way, the guy was making no money. And he called all of his suppliers and he said, "Stop giving this guy free food. I don't want him in my town anymore." And when he went, the town got very upset. I'm helping him now legally. My lawyer's helping the guy legally. But, the mayor's explanation now is, well, we got to follow the codes. We got to follow the regulations. They said, believe it or not, we don't need regulations to block people from giving out free food. I mean, it's totally reasonable that if somebody wants to give their neighbors free food, they should be able to do it without having to deal with crazy regulations.
It's completely ridiculous, especially, when you have people in need and community members step up to the plate to help those fellow community members. And then the government comes in and stops it because they can't control it. It's kind of revealing in what the Democrats want to do. It's all about power and control. Now, you're interested in politics, obviously. When it was announced that Elise Stefanik was going to go to the UN, you threw your hat in the race, but then obviously she ended up staying. So what do you think about Elise Stefanik possibly running for governor?
I think it's a great idea. She seems like it's our best option to turn New York red. She's a tough person. She's a fighter. And I believe it or not, I've known her for high school. She's a very tough person. She likes to fight. She fought for the president, as did I. And I think it'd be a great thing for New York. I had an interesting experience running for a seat in the special election. I won every poll in that race. I won 4 polls, including one by the president's own pollster. The citizens loved me for whatever reason. So I think it's a great idea if she does that. And if she does go in that direction, I suspect I'm the front runner to succeed her.
And so you look to revive your campaign. Obviously, you had to shut it down when she announced that she was staying in Congress. But you're looking to revive your campaign. Now, how do you think, I want to dovetail into the big, beautiful bill that's currently going between the House and the Senate. Senate passed. And so now they need to come up with the reconciliation process and unify the bill, create one bill that will go back to both houses. What's your thoughts on the big, beautiful bill?
Believe it or not, I haven't read the big beautiful bill yet. I do, but I do believe you got to give leeway to the it's a big bill, right? So I'm not in Congress right now, and luckily it's not my job to make an assessment on that. I do think you got to give the president.
I don't think the members of Congress read it either. Don't worry
Right?
about it.
I don't think I think you got to give the president leeway to enact his agenda, and he's been a great decision maker. He's done a lot of great things. I do believe the president's has an interest in cutting costs and doing the right thing, and I think you got to give the president leeway. He did a great job his first term. He's done a great job thus far his second term. He secured peace all over the place. The president's constantly making good decisions. I think he's one of the, he's probably the best decision maker in the world, arguably. Elon feels a little bit differently, but I think debate's good. I think the debate that's going on is good. And, hopefully it stays, they're able to maintain their friendship despite their difference of opinion. The good thing about what's going on in the United States of America right now is all the debates on the right. The left is kind of out in the dark because their views became so radical that a lot of the debate that's happened since President Trump entered office is really on the right. It's a right versus right debate over H-1B visas or over the big, beautiful bill. But it's really us debating ourselves rather than us debating the Democrats anymore. So that's a good thing. But my ultimate opinion is you got to trust the president.
I think you're bringing up something that's interesting. So when we look at it, Democrats have no plans. That's obvious. Everything they come up with, it's all about emotion. It's not about policies or issues. They say everything in this bill is terrible, where you actually have Republicans debating this bill, talking about, hey, I may like the extending the tax cuts, making them permanent. I may like some aspects of increasing the Border Patrol and ICE budgets, but I have problems in the areas where it's not cutting spending enough. So you actually see free thought on the Republican side of the bench. And when it comes to fiscal responsibility, listen, I support the big, beautiful bill. I think it's got to get passed. I think it's critical that it gets passed because you don't want to stop the agenda from moving forward. But at the same time, I do believe that they need to tackle the wasteful spending in Washington, D.C. What are your thoughts on the amount of our national debt and the fiscal irresponsibility that Congress has exhibited over the course of the last several decades?
Fiscal irresponsibility is obviously a big problem, and it's a tough nut to crack. As a business person, I'm able to handle it very quickly because I don't got to go through bureaucracy to make changes. If I want to cut costs, I just do it. And, I'm able to do it very quickly. Elon Musk is probably one of the best cost cutters we've ever seen. Look what he did at Twitter. He bought Twitter, he turned it into X, and he fired 80% of the company, I think, in about a month, which was very impressive. So, the great thing about private enterprise, and I think people like myself, people like Elon that are used to dealing in private enterprise, we get used to being able to cut costs very quickly. In government, it's a tough nut to crack. It's a tough nut to crack. I probably have a better perspective on that once I'm in Congress. If I happen to get into Congress, and I have a better understanding of how to navigate this situation. So it's frustrating, I think, for people like myself and Elon and other business leaders to know that in our business world, we can cut costs very easily. And in government, for whatever reason, it's a lot harder. But I can tell you this, there's a lot of waste in government and there's a lot that can be cut. That's obvious. And I think everybody knows it. How you do it is a different question.
Well, but it reveals that the dependency on government, the growth of government is fueled by dependency. And so whenever there comes, we need to cut up a government program or service, everyone starts screaming, well, what's going to happen to my benefits? Do you think that we lost our way kind of, when we look at personal responsibility, independence? I mean, let's look at Medicaid, for instance. In the big, beautiful bill, there's a provision that if you are an able-bodied individual of sound mind and body, that in order to qualify for Medicaid, you have to work about 80 hours a month or go to school full-time 80 hours a month. Is that really difficult to do? Shouldn't we have requirements if you want to access government benefits?
That makes sense. I think the other thing, though, that makes a lot of sense that, maybe isn't talked about enough is that there's this notion that if you cut a budget, you're decreasing the service. And that's not true. In business all the time, I cut budgets and service levels go up. So I've had situations, you could have a bloated customer service department, you cut it by 20%. Well, the 20% you're cutting it generally is your lowest performing 20%. And what happens is the remaining 80% are happy that 20% is gone because they're not dealing with low performers anymore, and the overall productivity goes up. So it's often common in business that if you cut costs or cut budgets, productivity goes up, quality goes up, service levels go up. But in government, when we talk about, hey, we're going to make some cuts to this part, this or that, or the other thing, they go, oh, you're attacking seniors, you're attacking veterans, or you're attacking because there's budget cuts to various departments. But budget cuts don't mean service levels are going down. Often mean service levels are going up. And when you have waste and you cut the waste, the people that remain are able to perform better because they're not wasting their time dealing with non-productive parts of the organization.
That's exactly right. Just because you make a cut doesn't mean that you're actually cutting the program. You could be cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. And we know there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. We also know that government is outdated, right? I mean, certain aspects when Elon Musk was leading Doge that he revealed were completely shocking. The FAA that operated with floppy disk computers, where if one of those computers broke down, they would actually have to go to eBay to get parts because they don't make those parts anymore. How ridiculous is that when you see that we have a nearly $7 trillion budget? We generate about $4.8 trillion in revenue. How ridiculous is it when our government is using computers that have floppy disks?
Well, it's exactly. The government's a massive bureaucracy and it's difficult to upgrade, and somebody needs to get in there and do it. I said it's a tough nut to crack. When I do want to get into government, I'll be able to give you a much better perspective as to how you address these things. From the outside looking in, I can tell you, all these things should be fixable. And I think this was the frustration Elon has as a business leader. He knows all these things are fixable, and he knows that just infinitely increasing staff isn't necessarily the way to fix things. Like the Democrats like to say, oh, we're going to increase the staff of this organization 20%. We're going to add more people. Productivity is going to go up. I have a pretty big engineering department in my own company, about 100 people. And my engineering leaders tell me, don't hire more people. It's going to lower productivity because more heads are going to cause more confusion, more chaos. They said, we have a great team. It functions really well. And if you start hiring, you're going to lower productivity temporarily while we absorb those people. So smaller organizations generally perform better than big organizations. You want to keep your organizations as lean and as tight as possible by using as much automation as possible to have the smallest team possible. And we need to figure out how to do that in government, but it's a tough nut to crack. I can tell you, walking into a large pre-existing organization, it's doable. Elon did it at X and other people have done it, in other companies historically, but it's difficult to walk into a big organization and revitalize all their legacy systems. I actually did it in my company. I had green screen technology and I had floppy disks and green screen technology. In fact, when I first started working, you couldn't get a report. If you wanted to see data, you couldn't see it on the computer screen because with green screens, you would have to tell the computer to print the report and you'd have to read it off a sheet of paper. So, I went through the process of upgrading that tech stack at that business. And I know what it's like going through it. It's not easy, but it's doable. It's a little more difficult in government because you can't just do it. You got to get approval, and there's a political thing. And the Democrats say, oh, you're cutting things and it's bad. And all the people that lose their jobs go and cry, and liberal journalists become sympathetic and liberal voters become sympathetic, and it's a lot harder to navigate, and then people get nervous. But you need tough leaders like President Trump that just say, let's go do it, let's go fix this. And I really have a sense for how to navigate the whole process.
It's about statesmanship, right? I mean, as a representative in Congress, you have to temper people's expectations about what can and cannot be done, but there also has to be a will, and you need to explain to the American people why something is necessary. Do you think that the politicians, particularly the Republicans, explain things well to the American people, or do you think that they allow Democrats to control the narrative, and that's what drives the emotional debates that we see?
I think because of President Trump, we're getting a lot better. I think he showed them how to articulate effectively, talk to the common person effectively. I'm told I have the same skill. People told me it for a long time because I run a manufacturing / tech company hybrid, and I'm able to talk to everybody from the frontline worker to the, and degreed engineers that work for me. And so President Trump has a great skill for explaining things effectively. I think he's helped the Republican Party, in a major way in that regard. But I think the bigger issue is, I learned a little bit about politics running is, there is a problem with will and a lack of will and resistance to change. And many politicians are just happy to have their jobs. When I was running, I ran into something called the establishment that was very resistant to my candidacy. And they did everything they could to resist my candidacy. But I won over to people and I won every poll, and that put them in a difficult situation. But yeah, a lot of politicians I saw from just running, there's a problem with, lack of will, and they resist they resist talented and successful newcomers like President Trump or myself. And I'm curious what the experience is like once you get into Congress. What obstacles you have to go through. I figured out how to get by the establishment in my candidacy. I figured out how to navigate around them because they told me in the beginning, you have to listen to us. You have to do things our way, and I just didn't do that. I did things my way, and I talked to the voters, and I took control of the situation. And ended up, I think, yeah, whatever. I took control of the situation, but there's obviously new things I would need to learn once I'm in Congress, how to navigate these people and maybe get them excited to go out and actually do something.
Yeah, well, you certainly butted heads with some party bosses that exist in New York State, and we look, even the conservative party, you had a little spat with that. Can you tell the audience about that?
Yeah, I mean, I ran for Congress. I announced, like, the cool thing about me running for Congress, at least I thought it was, is I had no plan of running for Congress. I just did everything I could to support the president, but the vote for Trump sign. I spent over $1 million, I don't know, maybe $2 or $3 million of my own money to get the president elected during the campaign. Plus, I really probably more when you calculate the business expense of endorsing the president and all the backlash I had to endure because of that. So I did all this work to help the president, and next thing I know, I met Roger Stone, and Roger Stone immediately encouraged me to run for Congress to succeed. Congresswoman Stefanik, I said, Roger, are you sure it's a good idea? He said, you're exactly the type of person we want in Congress. And so I said, I'm going to do it. A week later, I get a call from the New York conservative chairman, never spoke to him before. And he just starts ranting and raving on the phone like a lunatic. And I said, maybe I should record this because I don't know what's going to happen here. And I record it. And then moments later, he starts saying, we intend to kill you. We're going to do everything in our power to destroy you. And I subsequently leaked just released the conversation for the voters to hear and get their own take on that. I think it's ridiculous that he made that call to me. Whether he has a difference of opinion with me, I don't know if we even have a difference of opinion ideologically. If he is really a conservative, we should view the world about the same. I don't think I have any beliefs that are out of line with the conservative party. So I don't know what issue he had with me, but if he did have an issue, he should have, he should have invited me into the party and said he wants to get dinner with me and get to know me, and we should have ironed out our issues in a civil manner. We got to grow the team. We got to grow the conservative party. We got to grow the Republican Party. In New York, we're outnumbered by Democrats. So as soon as he heard I was interested, he should have been working to get me on the team. If he didn't want me to be the congressman, he could have had a civil discussion to say that, but he still should have been courting me and trying to bring me onto the team instead of threatening me. And on the basis of that call, I said, I think stuff like this, it wasn't just him. Then other things happened, like other leaders in the parties banned me from Republican dinners. It was the craziest. They were banning me from dinners, and they were doing everything they could to hurt my candidacy. And I said, I think I now know why the Democrats are so effective in New York State. Some Republicans and some conservatives, they're not working to grow the party. They're just trying to cling to whatever little bit they have.
The party bosses definitely want to cling to the power that they have as opposed to actually winning elections and taking control. It has always astonished me. But you're someone that goes outside the mold and you will buck the party establishment. So going forward, what do you think in the United States? What do you think that this administration needs to do? What do you think the top priorities for this administration should be?
Well, I like peace more than anything. I think we have a historic opportunity to pursue peace. President Trump's been great at that. I saw there's, new deals coming. There's a new deal he struck recently with regards to that. He's doing great trade deals. He just did one with Vietnam. I think the biggest win for the world, and I said I coined a term called Trump for peace. I'd like to see President Trump secure as much peace as possible. I was just talking to a friend about the situation in Israel, Palestine. It's really a ridiculous situation because people don't know this because no one talks about it enough. I mean, some people know, but it's not talked about enough. But the Arab nations tried to invade Israel within a day of the nation of Israel being formed. And they've tried multiple times to invade and attack Israel. And they failed every time. And when you constantly go to war and you just keep losing, at some point you got to accept the consequences of the loss. So when I hear Mandami saying global intifada or free Palestine, which means attack the Jews, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, we got a great president, I think, that can negotiate peace in that situation and say to the Palestinian people and the people that feel differently, look, you guys have already tried to attack Israel a number of times. You've tried a number of times. You've lost every single time. That's why you're in the situation you're in. You don't get to just keep constantly trying to attack a nation that's out there all by itself in the Middle East. And by the way, if you look at Israel got formed not so long ago. It's a beautiful country. It's a really beautiful country. It's got great infrastructure. They built an incredible economy for themselves. And if you look to the neighboring countries, it's not quite as nice. And I think there's a lesson there. I mean, there's a reason why Israel's a beautiful country and these other neighboring countries are not quite so nice. So there's a big opportunity, I think, for President Trump to negotiate peace. I think he's the best to do it. We can negotiate peace there and in a lot of other places. What he just negotiated it in Africa, and we got to negotiate it there too. So I'd like to see that more than anything. I think the most important thing in the world is peace and people not killing each other.
And I do believe that you will see that. I do envision that more countries will be signing on to the Abraham Accords. And let's be honest, the Middle East is actually far more stable under the Trump administration, and it has our entire lives. I mean, when we look at what's going on in the Middle East, I think it's transforming before our eyes. And the idea of taking out Iran's nuclear program was a bold step. And it appears that it worked, that it's not going to spark a larger war. With that being said, as far as domestically, as someone that is in the business world, you see some of the deals coming through with because of the tariff negotiations that are going on. Do you envision that we're going to strike a deal with China, or do you think China is going to continue to play hardball because they're seeking global dominance?
You know, that's a tough one. But again, like, we got a great negotiator with President Trump. He's got all the information. He's got far more information on that topic than I do. And so, you know, he knows way more than that on me. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen there per se. I do think you're going to see a lot of deals negotiated. President Trump likes doing deals. He's great at them. So I think he's going to do trade deals that are great for us, and peace deals, really peace deals. Ukraine, Russia, whatever's going on in Africa, Israel, Palestine. I think we're going to see great things there. And that's what I want more than anything. Aside from in the U.S., we have a great opportunity in the United States. Really, I like the president's message on bringing manufacturing back to America. I built a massive manufacturing company in the United States of America. I was talking to my team recently about this particular topic, and really, we're in a great situation to bring a ton of manufacturing back to America because of advanced robotics and AI. The only reason you manufacture offshore is because of the labor differential. But if you offset the labor differential with automation via robotics and artificial intelligence, you don't need to do offshore manufacturing anymore. So my team's currently working on doing apparel in the United States of America. We currently make everything in the USA, except we get our shirts from overseas, because that's where we get the quality shirts from. But we're looking at actually making our own shirts from scratch in the United States of America. We'll have an update on that soon. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that because of the president's leadership as well. I think there's a lot with regards to automation that the government could do as well to cut waste and service the people better. So we need more people, you know, even though Elon and President Trump are having a bit of a disagreement now, we really do need more people a little bit on the younger side that are technologists like Elon, getting involved in government and helping to automate, improve service levels through automation, through advanced software, through artificial intelligence, through whatever. There's tremendous opportunities to do that. My company runs beautifully because of my investment in software engineering, and we can make that same investment in the U.S. government and make the government run better and service citizens better and do it for a lot lower cost. So I'd like to see more on that front as well. But yeah. Happens.
Well, the myth out there that Democrats like to push is manufacturing isn't coming back. That you know, we can't manufacture anything anymore, and we got to be dependent on all these nations. But as you're showing, is no, you can actually do it. You can bring manufacturing back. You can create high-paying jobs here in the United States and improve the quality of life. Anthony, it was a pleasure to have you on today. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.